and had a very productive bye week with our players and recruiting, and off on a +1. We'll practice today and get an extra head start on Rutgers. So I'll answer your questions for you.
Front row, Dave. I'm sure you worked on a little bit of everything, but what was the focal point offensively during the bye week, Urban?
Oh, there's a lot of just logistics of the mechanics, not logistics, mechanics of the offense. We had a couple foo-bars in that crowd that hurt us a little bit, and getting the plays in a little quicker. Just continual development of players. You know, KJ Hill does have an high ankle sprain. He'll be out for 3 to 4 weeks. He had surgery. We're going to move Terry McLaurin in at H a little bit. And just getting some guy we rested, Noah Brown, and because of his foot, he's still dealing with a little bit of sore foot, and then same with Dontre. So just getting guys rested and still growing. Development of the backup offensive line. Brandon Bowen is taking great strides, and we're still not where we need to be behind them, but typical stuff. Probably boring to most people, but
it's not boring at all. Dontre seemed a little frustrated after the Oklahoma game. He said some stuff on Twitter that he then deleted. He's been dealing with a foot injury. Yeah, Dontre Wilson. I don't know if you saw that. Is that just did you see that? Anything or hear anything about that? Do you feel like he's frustrated that he's not getting the ball enough? Is it maybe just because he's injured?
I'm going to go find out what it was. I don't really concern myself with that stuff. I am now that you said it. Make sure I find out what was said on Twitter.
He must have deleted it fast enough.
Fourth row right, Nick. JT's only scrambled a handful of times this entire season. Is that maybe a sign of him being more comfortable in the pocket?
JT.
Scrambling. He's only done it a handful of times this year.
I don't know. He scrambles. He's the best we've ever had as far as it's always, some of them might look like quarterback runs. I mean, he goes back if he sees a slice, and it's not. No, he's terrific at getting us into manageable situations and keeping us on schedule. So how many scrambles you said?
I said only a handful. In terms of design runs, I only counted 7 that I thought were
designed runs.
That I thought were true scrambles.
Oh.
But I wasn't sure.
I'd probably say more than that. It might look like a Q run or something. He's just escaping it and getting positive yardage.
How much leeway do you give him to take off?
JT?
Yeah.
He's got the keys. He's real good at that. Real good at that.
Front row left, Mitch. Urban, have any of your players come to you to request that they be able to kneel during the national anthem? And if they had, how would you respond to that?
They have not. We've addressed it. Some of the issues going across this country in the summer with the players, and a couple of our coaches spoke, and we certainly respect their rights as a citizen of this great country. So that has not come up to me, and if it does, we'll have a chat about it.
All right, over here, Dom.
Coach, Earl Bruce apparently is going to dot the I on Saturday. Just can you talk about, that's quite a feat. There's not very many. Woody did it, Jonathan did it. Just what that means to you and what he means to you.
Well, I remember when that conversations were coming up, and not that my vote matters, but obviously I love Coach Bruce. He's like a father to me, and there's bits and pieces, there's a lot of things that he taught us, myself, this program about, right from wrong, no gray area, and do things the right way, and toughness, premium placed on education, all the things that I learned from him. So, yeah, it's great. I was very happy for him, and we had dinner the other night, and it's great for him.
Far left, Lori.
Coach, you do self-scouting to avoid tendencies. You try to remain balanced to avoid being predictable. When you face an opponent with such institutional knowledge of your program as you have, do you double down on those efforts or throw up your hands and say, we're just going to focus on execution?
No, we do things like signals. I'm just making sure that, just the things that could, especially defensively, with our defensive signals. But offensively, we go so fast, and we do double down on this, not just because it's Chris and someone who knows our program very well, but that bye week, that's what you do. You kind of, where's the back, where's the tight end, are we motion enough, what's our tendencies, and that's something I'm doing myself a lot better than we did a year ago. I think Ed and Tim are doing a really good job with the other stuff, so I'm allowed to focus on things like that.
I know this is the 8th time you faced someone who was once a part of your staff, but Has it ever been this
Eighth
much?
time.
The eighth time you faced like Coach Mullen or
Oh,
someone or Beckman.
previous
someone who'd
coach.
Been, yeah. But has there ever been one where there was so much carryover on the staff? I mean, half of their coaching staff had ties to OSU.
Yeah, Dan, when he went to Mississippi State, had John Hevesy and our line coach and some other people. Good point. They got a strength coach. They got all kinds of peoples. You know. I think, and not to make light of it, that is very serious stuff, and we had that conversation this morning in great detail. We changed most of our defensive signals prior to this, and offensively we're being very cautious. Also special teams, my guy that helped me, Vince O'Crew, was there. He's on their staff, so we got to just be sharp.
Front row right, Austin. Urban, is it possible that you have a Wally Pipp kind of situation with Jerome Baker coming in to take over that spot at linebacker?
Well, we're going to need them all. Jerome is probable now for this game, and we're going to need. This is a long season, so I see Dontre getting involved immediately when he comes back.
I guess not every situation would be the same, but in general, do you have a way you like to approach it if a starter gets hurt? Is it his job as soon as he comes back? Does he need to earn it?
Oh, you get the benefit of the doubt, but you got to. Ohio State, there's a bunch of good players around here, so. But you certainly get the benefit of the doubt. But there's no rule. I've heard people say, "Well, you can't lose your." I'm not sure what that means. As long as there's good, healthy competition at positions, that's what happens.
You referenced KJ. Are there any other injuries that kind of popped up during the bye week as you guys move forward?
Not that. Justin Hilliard tore his bicep, his other one, that's one of you shake your head like, how the hell did that happen? So he had surgery and he's out for several months.
Second row middle, Ryan.
Brooklyn is kind of a place that's not really regarded as a traditional football hotbed. So, when you're recruiting Curtis Samuel, how did you find him, and how do you evaluate a guy who maybe plays against competition that's not as good as some other places?
I think years ago that would have been correct. I think it's much better than it's been. I'd put Brooklyn very good, in some areas, very good football. I know their coach very well. And he was it wasn't hard to find him. He was one of the top 10, top 20 players in the country. And we're glad we have him. We recruited his teammate, Jocelyn Went, and we're looking at some other guys this year. So I think I've never recruited Brooklyn before in my life until that. And I think the football there is very much improved.
Front row left, Doug.
Urban, again, as Lori referenced, you've had so many assistants who have gone on to head coaching jobs. These days, whether it's somebody like Chris or who's done it, or someone on your current staff like Luke, or somebody who might want to do it down the line, for any good assistant, and you were in the spot, what do you do? Is there any balance between being the best assistant you can be while also trying to position yourself to be a head coach down the line? Do those two things exactly match up? Is there any?
I warn our guys that give us 2 good years and then we'll help you. I've also had people on our staff that maybe spent too much time, and I'll have to tap them on the shoulder and say, quit worrying about it. Your time, Bear Bryant had a great quote. I can't remember it verbatim, but it's actually in our coach's manual, and that's if we do well, you'll receive your rewards. If we do poorly, you will not. And so the best way to get a head coaching job is do the best job you possibly can. And when someone calls and we'll recommend you, it's not because of agents. It's not because of you're on the phone. It's certainly not because you're looking for it. And I've had to have a couple chats because people start getting their phones blown up, and like players in the NFL, you just got to manage it.
And with dismissal of Les Miles, that obviously you've coached against, any coach, it's always interesting to me when a coach who has a national championship on his resume ends up getting fired at a place. Is anybody really, really safe anymore? Can you ever, think, hey man, we have a trophy in the lobby that we won, I'm good to go,
We just beat Rutgers, man. I'm just worried about this place right here.
It's a crazy business, right?
It's crazy, and it's getting crazier, and much is given, much is expected. We were, television contracts and the college football playoff and the intense fan and support that we have now. It's always been good. And when I was at ESPN is when I really learned how good college football is. And it's pushing everything to be the best. So it's just part of the business, part of the game with all this great support and great rewards. It also comes a lot of pressure.
Front row, Bill.
You've had, obviously, a very successful early part of the schedule. I'm assuming you're happy with the bye week. Where is this team heading into what will be 9 weeks of Big Ten play? How good do you feel? What are your concerns?
I like our team. I like the fact that I haven't seen a lot of them yet because we really gave them 3 good days off. I'm hoping we have a high-energy, up-tempo practice and guys are ready to go to work. We did very well last week. And it was hard. The last one I made real hard. So it's so early right now, and you better worry about the next game, the next practice, the next game, and not worry about anything else. That's my concern is with all the added publicity, press conferences, and everybody being told how good they are. That's what I really worry about that. So just get them to practice and we'll be fine.
What are your thoughts about Rutgers? Obviously, they lost probably their best player last week.
2 really good players. The defensive end was a really good player, 22, and their punt returner, I was already working on him last week because he's dynamic. Anytime a young guy gets hurt, you just wish him the best. And they're both very good players.
Second row left, Ari.
Urban, you've recruited Cleveland, and you probably know Ted Ginn Sr. very well. I was just wondering, from your vantage point, have you seen another high school program in the country where a message of paying it forward for the kids behind you and the players that are connected to that program have a connection that the way that they do to Glenville, and what's it like to see Chris and Marshawn playing on the same field and looking over each other in the middle of the game?
I was actually with Coach Ginn on Friday, and they had an assembly where all the players were, the entire school were in blazers and ties and looked like $1 million. And I'm just so proud of what Ted's. I first met Coach Ginn 20-some years ago when he was a security guy at Glenville High School. So he's got one of the greatest hearts. He's personally been involved with many of our players that he's helped them through some hard times and kept focus. So if you say that doesn't mean there's not other great coaches. Can I list some other ones off the top of my head? I probably could. I'm not going to because I'll leave someone out. But one thing about the state of Ohio, the culture in this great state is always about paying it forward, is always about doing the right thing. I'm not saying everyone does it, but that's the culture of the state.
And one other thing, have you ever offered a kid early, and you've gone over and over about how recruiting has kind of sped up the calendar and you have to do it earlier, but have you ever offered a scholarship to a kid that you wouldn't accept a commitment from in the beginning just to get further into the game early?
Our coaches might have, just stay to get in the dance, to get in the game. I think this might be a good opportunity. I'm going to send out a letter to people. Hopefully, I keep hearing about this early sign-in period, early access, and let's move everything up. And I still can't believe we're having this conversation. And so we're absolutely opposed to that. And I hear the reasoning is because there's so many decommitments. What the hell does that? So because 17-year-olds are decommitting, let's give them a legal document so they can't decommit. That's not very smart. The young people have a right to choose where they want to go to school. Period. Let them decommit 100 times. They're 17-year-olds. That's why they're called 17-year-olds. And so I don't understand whether it's lazy, whether it's, I don't understand why this big push. Now they want to move junior, have official visits in their junior year. There's some kids that don't have ACT scores. Their bodies are gaining 12 pounds. So let's move it up. Why not move it up to their sophomore year? It's bizarre. You're going to see more transfers, more mistakes made in recruiting than ever if they keep pushing this thing up.
That causes programs to do certain things that maybe they
And
wouldn't
dive
want to
bomb.
do.
You make too many mistakes in recruiting, someone else is probably standing up here. You're right. And same thing with kid makes a mistake, they just transfer. And that's why the transfers, there's some Ivy League study that transfers have never been this high. Some study was done. And it might have been other sports, but the further you move up recruiting, kids, my son's gained 20 pounds in the last 6 months. Bodies change in the game of football. I want as much time. I want to watch them play their senior year. I wish we'd move it back. And everybody's talking about moving that thing forward and having an early sign-in period and I heard July, early signing date. That means they're going to be visiting here some of them 16 years old, most are 17 years old without some of them ACT or SAT score. Doesn't make sense. And if I'm a high school coach, I'm not in favor of that at all either.
All right, over here, Todd.
Urban, a couple of years ago after the national championship game, you talked openly about just how much of a physical toll that took on all the teams that participated in the playoffs. You're just coming off your bye week now already, and now you have to go into a long stretch. How concerned are you about not just physical but mental grind, and how do you combat that not only for your players but also for your staff and make sure you stay fresh when the games, you know?
That's a good question, and I wish it was a little later, but once again, you can't. I say that, then people say, well, once a bye week. It doesn't really matter when the bye week is, but that is true what you just said. And I'm not worried so much about the staff, but the grind on a player, and that's why you hope you develop enough depth that you keep a nice rotation going. And I have to be smart about practice because it is. We got 9 straight weeks coming up, and against Big Ten opponents, and a bunch of tough road games. So yeah, I'm kind of looking out in the future as well, and we're getting ready to hit the grind.
Is there also a mental freshness you have to be aware of too?
Sure. Absolutely.
How do you deal with that as a coach?
Well, that's where guys. I have enough support staff. Coach Marotti, his team, and then Ryan Stamper. I'm always asking him how our players doing and get a feel. I'm not worried about the ones that complain about everything. I'm worried about the real guys on our team because now throwing a course load in a high-end academic school, it is a wear and tear. So we have to be very careful of that.
And
Great question.
final questions, Tim? Yeah, Urban, has there been any update or any clarification on what went on with Coach Schiano last week in the traffic accident?
Oh, he did have an accident. We were all aware. Ginn was aware immediately. I think he hit the media too. I'm not sure I'm allowed to. Obviously, we just wish the young person well.
Yeah. The other thing, when you watch video now, what do you see about Rutgers specifically defensively? Do you see Chris Ash influence there? As you
Our
watch
defense, yes.
And
It's our defense.
how does it show up?
It's our defense.
Yeah.
Exactly. And they do a very good job, and their defensive line was much improved. The guys are bigger and stronger. They also stole one of our strength coaches, Kenny Parker, and it looks like it. They're up front. They played Iowa shoe-to-shoe the entire game, so very physical up front, and then really schematically very similar to what Chris did when he was here. Very well-coached team.